A lot of us like to picture ourselves as the hero of our own movie. We think, I would have acted differently if I had those circumstances. Well, today I'm going to question that theory and tell you why we're not so different today than people were in the 1940s. My name's Eric. This is Above My Pay Grade. Let's get into it. All right, folks, so part of my job in the military is to teach pilots, airmen, how to resist interrogation. And one of the things that I always talk about is Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs. And the reason I bring this up is I think most people picture their life, they picture history and they think, I would have done something different. Given the circumstances, I would have acted differently with moral confidence to disobey. If society's going one way and that way is evil, I would have gone the other way. This could be true, but the reason I talk about Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs is because we think of ourselves as altruistic, especially in America. We gave money to the lady who was asking for it in the parking lot. We help an old woman cross the street. Whatever quiets your conscience. But I always question that altruistic picture of yourself because in America, we have everything we need, right? We're not wanting for food. We're not wanting for shelter and security. But if you look at Maslow's Hierarchy of Needs, if you're ever in captivity, a lot of the top tier, which would be self-esteem, self-actualization, love, all the things that we think give us meaning in life, those are all taken away if you were ever in captivity. And you're relying on kind of animal instincts. Your basic needs might not even be met: food, water, shelter, clothing, and medical attention. Now, how does this apply to us today? I think in society, when we look at history, we're looking at it through the lens of today and how we would have reacted. But what happens in society if safety is in question? From a societal perspective as a whole, if people don't feel safe, if people don't get food, none of these things are being met because these kind of build on each other. You need your basic needs: food, water, shelter, clothing, medical attention. You need to feel safe. And before you can feel love, self-esteem, self-actualization, becoming your best person, you need these two basic things: safety, food, water, shelter, clothing, and medical attention. Now, what happens if that doesn't exist? What happens if society breaks down and these basic needs aren't met? Would you actually be a good person? Because everyone says they're a good person until there's potentially 3 hungry people and 1 piece of bread, if that makes sense. So I always tell people, you have to know what you're capable of, because I think everyone is a sinner, right? We're capable of heinous stuff, and the person that thinks, I would never do that, is typically the most susceptible to doing those things. Now, why does this matter to economics? And then the thumbnail of the video, I said economics and human behavior, or the human condition. Oftentimes in history, bad stuff has happened because of bad economic policy. So let's take a quick look at Weimar Germany. So the Weimar Republic, it was named that during World War I, before Hitler took over. But in Weimar Germany, after World War I, they had to pay reparations to France. And because they had to do this, their currency started to lose value because Germans were printing marks. So that was what they used, that's their dollar. They were printing marks to pay for these reparations. And there's a lot more that goes into it. I'll link a story in the description below if you want to read more about it. But my argument is this. Weimar Germany, to give you a scope of how bad hyperinflation was in Weimar Germany, in May of 1923, a loaf of bread cost 350 marks. And by November of 1923, it cost 200 million marks. So imagine societal cohesion in that environment. People had to get paid twice a day to keep up with inflation because the things they were buying were going up that fast. And eventually people started actually using the currency itself to heat their homes because it was cheaper than buying wood or buying other heat sources. So why does this matter? Hyperinflation in Weimar Germany eventually led to unemployment, mass unemployment. And if you understand what unemployment leads to, right, people can't feed their families, so people got desperate. And my argument is hyperinflation and the breakdown of societal cohesion and hope, a lot of people lost hope. A big reason Hitler was elected is because people were so desperate from hyperinflation and unemployment. People got so desperate, they wanted an answer. They wanted somebody to blame. And Hitler gave them the answer to their anger, if you will. He gave them an outlet because they were angry. So we take for granted a lot of things in this country. And one of those things is trust, right? Thinking ethereally about why we trust government. If we don't trust government, oftentimes society tends to break down. And if that trust breaks down in society, think about if you went to the store and the currency didn't work anymore, or the store didn't want to take the currency. And so you had to come up with something else to give them in order to purchase that food or water, whatever you're purchasing. How quickly would society break down? Fairly quickly. So these basic needs are starting to come in question. Am I even able to get food, water? Do I feel safe? Because typically if society breaks down, people don't feel that safe. So why am I saying this? Again, history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. I think we're in store one day in our lifetime for a currency collapse. If you look at the math at how our government is printing money to pay off debts, to buy its debts, the Federal Reserve is literally buying debt from the U.S. government. And I don't think that can last. And if we don't build a parallel system for yourself, in other words, stock food, water, and potentially look at ways to save money other than in the dollar, I think these things can happen to our society, because they can happen to any society. We, as people, are no different than the Germans were in 1930. We have the same propensity to do evil things, and if you look at history like, oh, that was them and I'm somehow different, you're typically looking at it, again, through the lens of today, and you haven't ever experienced this kind of stuff. So you really don't know how you would react. And so I think it's very important to be prepared, not scared. So if you see something coming down the pipe, you can whistle by the graveyard, like a lot of people do. Oh, it's not going to happen. But if overnight grocery stores ran out of food, how panicked would you be? You got to be honest with yourself. Kind of a rhetorical question. But a lot of people would be panicked. And it's not something to think about if and when it happens. It's something to think about today. Same thing with our currency. Our currency can't last forever. Every fiat currency in history has failed. So we don't have very good odds of the dollar continuing. And so I think politicians think in 4-year time slots. And so they'll potentially make mistakes that would cause these kind of things to happen. And when people get desperate, they often act in illogical ways, and they're capable of doing a lot of evil if they don't have their basic needs met. What would you do for food if your kids were starving? A lot of people would do a whole bunch of things, right? So my point in all this, be prepared, not scared. If you guys think this kind of stuff is important, which I very much do, I'd ask you to share this with your friends and family, and I will see you in the next video.